Hey, thanks for joining me on the video here today. I just wanted to share a little bit of sumo with you. So if you're anything like me, sumo has never really been a big part of your life. Even martial arts practitioners don't really intersect with sumo too often. I think the visual of it is something that can basically deter a lot of people. You know, you've got some large dudes standing in a ring. They're going to push and slap each other until one of them falls out of the ring. And so, in theory, I was like, okay, I get it. You know, I know what's going on here. I don't need to invest a lot of time in it. And I never really thought any more about it. But recently, a website called Twitch, which you might know from the video game streaming, they also do a lot of sort of real life, day in the life kind of streaming as well. They recently opened a channel specifically for sumo. And so they're streaming live sumo that's going on, you know, kind of right now. And it was so easy for me to access, I thought to myself, yeah, let's give it a try. So I found myself very intrigued by it. And it's not just the action, but there's all kinds of esoteric ritual associated with it. There's weird protocols that go on. And there's these different phases of sumo. You sort of have like this initial phase, which is called the shikiri phase, which is where a lot of protocols go on and the combatants are kind of sizing each other up. Then you have the actual fight, let's say, or the match, and then sort of final protocols as well. So let's just take a look at a match or two, and I'll point out just some things along the way, and you know, see if you can kind of get a grasp on it as well, and see if it's interesting to you. If you are already fluent in sumo and you kind of already know what's going on, this video is not going to have a ton for you, but if you've not seen it, or if you've only ever seen matches in the background, maybe, you know, we might be able to offer you a little something here. So let's kick it off. So the first thing you're seeing here is what's called a Dohyo. So a lot of karate practitioners or martial artists will know about a dojo, but this is the Dohyo. So slightly different connotation there. And what you're seeing is the beginning of the shikiri phase. So this is the ritual as the combatants are kind of preparing themselves. Right now, they're sort of in their own corners. And in the middle is a gentleman called a gyoji, who is essentially going to be the referee. Now, what you're going to see is a little salt toss here. Basically, every time the rikishi, or the combatants, enter into the ring, they are going to be tossing salt. And this is a purification sort of phase, making sure that the ring is cleared of any negative spirits. And a lot of the ritual is associated with that. Now, let's watch just a little bit further here. What you're going to see is some very classic sumo stomping, something that we've probably all seen in popular culture here or there. Again, just to sort of stomp and clear the ring of any negative spirit. But also, one important thing to keep in mind with all this etiquette is that it's also some basic psychological warfare going on. These two players are trying to figure each other out. And you're going to notice when you start watching sumo, there's two major approaches to this phase. Some people have extreme intensity. So everything they're doing, you know, very intense in the eyesight. You'll get to see some other parts of the etiquette coming up. They do very loud. Other people will almost seem like they are disinterested or disengaged. And so there's this weird balance of swagger versus intensity. And each person kind of has their own unique approach. So we're seeing the person in the black mawashi, or the black belt here. He's just kind of chilling. He's not going very intense. The larger guy in the green belt, kind of similar. All right, now they're about to kneel down. Okay, this is important. You're about to see them prepare for the match. But this is something that confused me, because they're not actually going to engage in the tachiai, or the initial attack, yet. And the key giveaway is the gentleman here in the middle, the gyoji, the referee. You'll notice that he's facing sideways. That's basically saying the gyoji is not ready for the match to commence yet, and there should be more ritual taking place. So let's watch them go through that. Okay, a little fake touch, a little fake touch. And now we back off. Now you'll notice that they retire to their corners and they're doing what's called a mawashi slap. That's the belt slap. Some combatants get really intense with that. Some are just kind of, nonchalant. Here comes the self slap. Now this makes a lot of sense because these guys are about to hit each other really hard. So you want to desensitize yourself a little bit to the violence that's about to happen. And just as a side note, the belt colors are not specific to rank. So the green belt there is not lower ranked than the black belt. Basically, the only thing is when you get to a high enough sumo level, you can choose what color belt you'd like to use. That's really all there is to it. Okay, so we're getting close here. This is the last part of the shikiri phase. Now you'll notice the gyoji, who's the referee, you'll notice he's facing forward now. That's basically the engagement phase. And he has something called a gunbai, which is a wooden paddle. Now, throughout the match, he's going to use this to direct action, to point to who has won after the match. It's basically like his little tool. Okay, so now we're going to let the actual match run, and then we will rewind it and talk about some of the pieces of the match. Okay, let's take it back just a second there. Okay, here we go. All right, so now this time it's for real. So they're getting down to a squatting position. And what's going to happen next is both combatants have to touch their hands to the ground before the tachiai, or the initial attack, can take place. Now, this is an interesting subtlety because one of the players will place both of his hands down. So in this case, I believe the black mawashi here, he'll put both of his hands down. The green player, he'll put one hand down, and then they're basically staring down each other. They're matching their breath to each other to kind of get a sense of timing. And then the green player, all he has to do is sort of indicate with the second hand. If he indicates down, that's basically a trigger for them both to go. So let's watch that phase. Sizing each other up. Here comes one of the hands. Firm plant. Okay, down. Okay, so you'll notice that green went very fast. He basically was trying to keep the other player off balance or off guard. Now, in the tachiai, that's when they first come together. You'll notice there is a ton of slapping that's going on to the face and the neck area. So this is the kind of stuff that would basically knock a normal person out. And every now and then you do see some knockouts, not to the point where they're unconscious, but to the point where they get staggered because these strikes are so sort of fierce. What's legal in sumo is empty hand slapping. So you can't close your fist. You cannot punch. You cannot kick. Empty hand slapping, however you want to do it, whether it's, broad across the face or thrusting up into the neck, that's all legal. And you can actually kind of cross your arms sometimes and almost use like your forearms and your elbows to create contact as well, which can be pretty serious. So the method of sumo that we're seeing here, especially as with the initiation by the green player, is what's called oshizumo, which is a pushing or a thrusting sumo style. The other primary style is what's called yotsuzumo, which is like a belt grabbing and grappling style. We don't see too much of that here. So let's let it run. Lots of thrusting, lots of pushing. So the green player got a better initial kickoff, in the tachiai, so he had some momentum going. Now the black player has been able to sort of slide toward the side and create a little bit of disruption of that momentum. Okay, now what you saw right there is essentially what's called Henka, which technically means variation or alternate. And the way it's expressed in sumo is sort of a sidestep. and a downward thrust with the hand. So, you'll see it used in a lot of different ways by people. Sometimes when there's a head-to-head clash, you'll see one person release that tension by using a Henka, which is a sidestep, and kind of push the head of the opponent down. Apparently in the sumo world, this is controversial. Some people consider it sort of low skill or low brow sort of sumo because they like to see the sheer power of pushing or the sheer technique of grappling with the belt. However, there's a whole other faction that basically says there's nothing wrong with Henka. It's a very valuable additional technique. So let's just kind of take one more little peek at that, if we can. Get back to where we want to be. Okay. Here we go. One more time. Okay, so he got him using the Henka, and the two ways that you can lose in sumo is if you fall victim to a push or a Henka and you make contact, sort of like an all-fours contact on the clay, or if you get pushed outside the boundary of the Dohyo here. Interestingly, two things you might have noticed. The Gyoji, here the ref, he is shouting the entire time. And there's two major things that he's going to say. The first is hakyoi. You'll hear him say that at the beginning of a match, or if the match sort of stalls out. It's basically an encouragement to resume the match and create energy. So you're going to what he doesn't want is the match to stall out. You'll see this in MMA a lot. Like if two combatants get grappling and they're just kind of sitting there taking a breather, a ref will try to encourage action. So similar here. The other thing he's shouting is Nakota. And that's the thing he's kind of shouting over and over again. And what it is he's saying that both combatants are still in the match. So basically, while he's yelling that, the combatants know that the match is still live. And this is super useful because sometimes the combatants aren't 100% sure where they are in the ring. Did their heel touch outside the ring or something like that? So as long as the Gyoji, the referee, is still shouting, both the combatants know they should keep fighting. So he's pointing with the gumbai to indicate who the winner is. Now the loser will step back up. They'll do a little more ritual. Now the gumbai is rewarding the winner. The winner does a small tegatana with his hand, basically as a small recognition of appreciation, for the match. Okay, let's take a look at one more match here. I got one that shows some slightly different stuff. So we're kind of skipping ahead through some of the protocols. Okay, you'll notice the Gyoji is forward facing. That means both of these individuals are about ready to go. So they're putting their hands down. Okay, now what you just saw there, that's called mata, or a false start. Basically, if the lineup isn't correct and one person jumps into the tachiai before the other person's ready, the Gyoji, the ref, will stop it. All right, lining back up. You usually don't want to see two matas in a row. Hakyoi call to resume action. Yelling Nakota, letting them know to keep fighting. Getting tired. Strategizing. Encouraging them to keep playing. Okay. So, much different match style, right? You're seeing something completely different here. So, this is much more in line with the Yotsuzumo style of sumo rather than the Oshizumo. That means there's a lot of belt grappling going on here. Now, you'll notice that the green belt here, he's got a very firm grip on the orange belt. But what the orange belt has done is he's locked up the elbows to prevent the green belt from getting underneath his weight. So that's where the stalemate's coming. Better grip over here, but locking this to make sure that the weight doesn't sink under to allow for a lot of those other techniques. And basically, how this sort of wraps up is so here, this is an interesting head-to-head pushing that's going on. This is a situation where a Henka might occur, a sidestep and a push down on the head, but they're so locked up with each other that there's very little opportunity to let it happen. The fact that they're able to generate any sort of lift at all is really impressive. And then, so what happened there? The gentleman in the orange was trying to turn and throw the gentleman in the green, basically sort of a hip toss of sorts. But the gentleman in the green was able to counter it and fall on top of the gentleman in the orange, which means since the gentleman in the orange fell first, he then is the loser of the match. Okay, let's go back just a touch here. So, this is just a little bonus at the end of the conversation here. One thing you may not have noticed is something that has drawn the attention of the internet and the Twitch community. So, let me explain. In the audience here, normally the stadiums would be packed, but with COVID, you're seeing about half capacity. In Japan, you'll often hear the terms prince and princess used for people that are exceptional at something. But usually it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek title. So it's like if someone eats a ton of hamburgers, he may be referred to as the hamburger prince. Well, there's a woman who attends all of the sumo matches, and she sits in perfect seiza with perfect posture at every single match. And so basically the internet has dubbed her the posture princess, because she's unwavering. So just watch a few seconds of this match again here. And you can imagine someone who's sitting for 3-4 hours in unbroken seiza posture. So that's one of the funny little things that have gone on sort of inside the sumo community. There are certain combatants who have become fan favorites. There are certain combatants who are much different in size than the others. There's a gentleman named Enho who is particularly small, but he's so fast and so agile that he's beating people 2-3 times his weight. In sumo, there are no weight classes. So basically, you just have to go off of raw skill. So I hope this was an interesting primer for you, and I hope you got a little bit out of it. And if you would like to watch some more of this for free, you can check it out on Twitch. Basically, look for the channel that's called MBOVOSumo. So MBOVOSumo. And I'll throw a link, with this video wherever possible. And check it out. Hope you enjoyed.